How should you store grains? What is the best way to be storing grains? There are so many answers to this question, but we're going to be talking about this on this video today, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a heads up. It's not as complicated as you think. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, you guessed it, we talk all things real whole grains from a biblical perspective. I teach you how to be milling your wheat, your other grains, consuming whole grains, baking bread, so on and so forth. Now, a little background about me. I have been doing this for over a decade, which means I have been storing grains in bulk for over a decade, and I've definitely learned a thing or two about it. So I'm going to be giving y'all my tips that are tried, tested, and true, because trust me, I have learned, and I have stored a ton of grains throughout these years, and frankly, I've only ever had 2 buckets go bad, and I'll explain to you why later. So in this video, I'm going to be covering 3 things. 1, how to store your grains. Easy peasy, simple. Number 2, the slight exceptions. There are 3 grains that are a bit more tricky, or just things to look out for when it comes to storing your grains, especially long term. And number 3, I'm gonna get into kind of my favorite things to use and have on hand when it comes to storing grains. That's really gonna make your life a whole lot easier. All right, so first of all, how to be storing the grains. So like I said, a little bit of background. I've been doing this for over a decade. I live in the state of Florida, and I have the whole time. I'm native Floridian, and it gets extremely stupid hot and crazy stupid humid here. Okay, so moisture is definitely a big deal. Now, there are 2 big enemies when it comes to your grains, and that is moisture and that is pest. So basically, all that you need to do in order to store grains is you just need to make sure that you're keeping out the moisture and you're keeping out the pest. And basically, all that really involves is just a good container with a good lid that keeps out your moisture and your pest. Now, as you may notice, if you watched other videos, I'm in a different location. I'm actually out here in my shed. And as I stated, I'm in Florida, and I actually store my grains, all of them, in an uninsulated shed outside. So this is, there's no air conditioning in here. This is not a temperature controlled environment. I mean, it's just shed. Okay. My wonderful husband built me these sturdy shelves. So you definitely need sturdy shelves when it comes to grains. And I've never had grains go bad, except 2 exceptions, but we'll get to that later. And this is where my grains are stored. I have even stored grains completely outside. Long ago, when we started our homesteading journey, I had an outdoor kitchen. My grains were stored outside. Now, they were under just a simple awning like you see at farmers markets, and then it was underneath like a table that was built for me, that my husband built for me. But otherwise, when it rained, like water would actually kind of sprinkle a little bit onto the buckets. If it was a downpour, I would even have water on top of my lids. And I never once had those grains go bad because I had really good buckets with really good lids that kept out the bugs, the pest, and the moisture. And so I've even had it in more extreme conditions, and my grains did not go bad. So I know you might see, oh, I need Mylar bags or oxygen absorbers. You do not need those items. If you want to use them, fine. They're not going to hurt your grains, but they're definitely not needed. And there's nothing wrong with throwing especially oxygen absorbers in, because the point of oxygen absorbers is they remove the oxygen so no bugs can live in there, because that's another concern that you do have with your grains is sometimes, you know, they might have little mites inside of them and they may hatch, and then you have bugs in your grains. Now, I've never experienced that with any of the wheat type grains. I've only experienced that with 3 type of grains that are an issue, but we'll get to that later. So again, you just really need a good bucket. So food grade safe bucket. This one you see is from 4 Generations Organic Farms. It already comes in a food grade safe bucket with a good lid. If you are buying your grains in bags, you need to, whenever you receive those, put them in buckets. Do not, or glass jars, or whatever it is you put them in. Don't keep them in your bags, because those bags, pests can get in them very easily, and so can moisture. That's pretty much all you need. Good container, good lid. keeps out the moisture and the pest. All right, so let's get to point number 2. And that is there are 3 slight exceptions to this. There are 3 grains that you need to know about that need a little bit more finesse when it comes to storing them. And these 3 grains are corn, brown rice, and oat groats. Now, the reason that these are a bit different is because most of these have the oils more on the outside, or they're a bit more starchy of a grain. And so corn and rice, I treat them the same. With corn and with rice, I actually used to just freeze them for 24 hours. And then just immediately from the freezer, I just then dump them into whatever container, like the Good Bucket, Good Lid that I'm storing it in. And I've never had a problem. The reason why I froze them is because corn and rice and the brown rice are starchier grains, and they're more likely to have those little mite bugs hatch and your grains become buggy. No bueno. Extra source of protein. You're not going to die if you eat them, but you probably don't want to. You probably don't want to. And so that's the exceptions there. And it's just the type of grains that they are. Now, I actually don't freeze them anymore. I actually just throw in oxygen absorbers, and it does the same thing. So as long as, there's no oxygen, the bugs cannot thrive with no oxygen. Now, be mindful when it comes to oxygen absorbers, if it is in a bucket that you are opening and closing, opening and closing, check your oxygen absorbers each time to make sure that they're still good. So if your oxygen absorbers ever are hard, they're not good anymore. You need to replace them, and you definitely want to do so. When it comes to oxygen absorbers, also make sure that you are getting the right size for the container that you have. So there's a difference between 1 gallon size and a 5 gallon size. And I'll be linking below great sources for those oxygen absorbers if you want to do that, or if you just prefer to freeze them beforehand, and then you'll be good. So corn is actually one of the times that I've actually had bugs hatch in them, and I lost a whole bucket of corn. And that is because I did not prepare them. I didn't freeze them. They had no oxygen absorbers. It was a bucket that it was actually sitting in my house for over a year, and the bugs hatched. So learn from my mistakes. It will happen if they're stored long term. If you're going to be using that corn up in maybe a month or 2, you're probably going to be fine. But for me, I store in bulk, and I didn't touch that bucket for over a year. And so that was the only time that I've ever had the bugs hatch in grains, is because I just did not prep it right for corn. We'll go ahead and talk about the second time that I've ever had a bucket go bad. It was some sort of wheat grain, and that's only because we were moving, and the people that were helping us move cracked one of my lids on my buckets, and I did not know about it until about a month later. I went to access, it was actually one of a Gamma lid, which we'll talk later, but it cracked the rim of it, which allowed moisture to get into the bucket, and the grain was ruined. So that's the importance of keeping moisture out, is because it will ruin your grains. And those are the only 2 times that I've ever lost grains. Now, again, so corn and rice, I treat the same. I either freeze them for 24 hours, then store them in buckets, or I use oxygen absorbers. The third grain is oat groats. Now, oat groats, what you need to look for is it actually starts with what you buy. And so if you look at most places that sell oat groats, like Pleasant Hill Grain or Azure Standard, and oat groats are the whole oats before they're rolled or cut or anything like that. They look like wheat berries. And most of those places will say that they have stabilized the oats. You want to buy stabilized oat groats. And what this means is that basically they have very, very lightly toasted the oat groats, because what it does is oats have the oils on the outside that would have them go rancid a lot faster than if you just lightly toasted them. And then that stabilizes those oats to be able to be stored longer. Now, this does mean that these oats you cannot use for sprouting. They're not going to sprout because of this process. But as far as the nutritional value goes, you still get the great beneficial nutrition with the oats, even though they have been stabilized. So that's the biggest thing with oat groats that you want to look for, is make sure that you're buying them where they say that they're stabilized for long-term storage. All right, so before we get to point number three. Let's talk about today's sponsor, and that is 4 Generations Organic Farms. So I love 4 Generations Organic Farms. They are an excellent source of my organic hard red and hard white wheat berries, along with some others. So right now they are my go-to. Hard red, which is their Butler's Gold, and their Stardust, which is their hard white. Those are my go-to hard red and hard white grains. They do absolutely wonderful, perfect for newbie bakers, very easy to work with. And another thing is I love about 4 Generations is that I'm buying directly from the farmer. They are organic farmers that have been around, well, 4 generations since the late 1800s in Oklahoma. So they are USA grown wheat berries that you can get. They're shipped straight to your house, reasonably priced, and they're organically grown, which means that they're taking care of their soil, regenerative farm practices, no GMOs, no crazy pesticides, definitely no glyphosate, nothing crazy like that. And so they're also taking care of their soil for that 5th generation that I'm hoping to come around. So if you haven't checked them out, be sure to just go to grainsandgrit.com/4generations. Use coupon code grainsandgrit for 10% off your first order. Tell them I sent you, and good news is their grains already come very well sealed and with oxygen absorbers in it already. So already doing well when it comes to storing them long term. Okay, so let's get to number 3. And there are 2 tools that are my favorite and definitely makes the job easier when it comes to storing grains. So the first one that you're gonna want are these bucket openers, and I will link these below. I actually have like more than one. I have them on a nail right on the side of my shelving here in my shed, so they're easily accessible, because whenever you get these buckets, y'all, let me tell you, they are hard to open, and these make it so much easier to open. So definitely you're gonna want, you need bucket openers. It will save your sanity, and you are welcome. So this also helps because like for this bucket right here for 4 Generations, you can put the lid back on. You can reuse the lid, but it's so tight, which is good. Like you want it to be tight to keep out the pests and the moisture, but this is gonna save your sanity and really makes it so much easier. The second wonderful tool, whoever invented it, God bless you, are Gamma lids. So these are wonderful screw top lids that you can purchase. And again, I'll link these down below. So if you are definitely storing in buckets like this, whether you are buying already in buckets or in bags, and then you put them in here, these lids make it so much easier because you actually don't need this. Now, I still recommend this too when you first get into your buckets. You still want this tool, but the Gamma lids make it so much easier because once you install the rim, then the lids, it's just a screw on. You just screw it on and screw it off, and makes it easy peasy to get in and out of your buckets. Now, one thing you need to know, these lids are not removable. Okay, trust me. I have tried removing Gamma lids off of buckets, the rims that go on. I have tried removing those from buckets. It ain't gonna happen. Okay, so make sure you put it on a bucket that you can reuse over and over again. Now that I've kind of reorganized my grains, I'm wanting to get some more Gamma lids. And what I'm gonna do is even the grains that already come in buckets, I'm gonna just dump into the bucket with the Gamma lid and just reuse that over and over again, because it's just so much easier when you are accessing your grains over and over again. Now, a little bonus information about how I actually store all my grains, what my system is. I didn't say this at the beginning, but I figured I'd give you a little bonus moment here. So what I actually do, how it works at my house, is I have my bulk grains out here in my shed. These are the ones that are stored in the buckets. Inside my house, I do actually have a milling station, and my wonderful husband, again, because he loves me, built me very, very, very sturdy shelves where I actually have pretty much all my grains that are out here in my shed. They are represented inside in gallon or half-gallon size glass jars. So whether they're mason jars or jars that you get from Azure Standard or whatever it is. And so they're in glass jars inside my house. So whenever I'm wanting to mill something, I'm not having to always come out here to, get the amount of grains and then go back into my house. I keep some in the house so I can quickly mill something and then just refill those as needed. So there you go, y'all. Easy peasy way to store grains. Hopefully this was helpful. Be sure to check out 4 Generations Organic Farms if you are needing to stock up on some grains. And if y'all have any questions, list them below and I will be sure to answer them. And if you're needing to know just a simple yeast bread loaf recipe because you might be a newbie, then be sure to check out this video here. Easy peasy recipe for your grains that you have now stored. And as always, I hope y'all have a wonderful day and I'll see you next week. Bye.